Google Analytics. Now, this word frightens a lot of people. Now, it shouldn't do. Google Analytics really is your best friend when it comes to digital marketing. And why would you want to use it, first of all? Now, a lot of business owners I meet who exist online don't even have a Google Analytics account. It's a little bit like having a shop in the middle of London and not having any idea how many people are visiting your shop. It's and it really is the equivalent of that. So the great thing about Google Analytics is that it goes one step further. It reports to you about the performance of each respective channel that you've got, each respective marketing channel you've got going on. Maybe you've got a Google AdWords campaign running. Maybe you've got some SEO happening. You've got an email campaign running. You've got display ads. Maybe you've got a Facebook ad campaign running. It can even report to you the performance of your Facebook campaigns as well, if you know how to set it up correctly. So it's really your one-stop shop where all of your everything is consolidated in terms of analytics for each channel. And you want to do this because, well, other than just knowing who's visiting and why and when, you want to use this data to then feed back into your other marketing channels, not just Google Ads, although Google Ads will be the thing that I focus on. You can use this data to focus on your SEO, to help guide your SEO efforts, to help guide your email campaigns, and to help guide your Facebook ad campaigns even. And the way it does this is by reporting the metrics that I described earlier, things like the conversion rate, the click-through rate, etc. You can work out which keywords in your SEO campaigns and your Google Ads campaigns are working, but also what your bounce rate is perhaps on your Facebook campaigns, or what your click-through rate is on your emails, to understand which channel is working, which channel isn't. And once you know how to use Google Analytics, you can really use it to build a lot of success online. So I would say Google Analytics was probably responsible for my big success online, where I had an e-commerce campaign running, as an e-commerce website running that hit nearly 80,000, hit over 80,000 a month. And I did that using various channels, Google SEO, Google Ads, and other sources, but all of that was done through the continual optimization using Google Analytics data. So how does it work? First of all, I'm not going to bore you with any coding here, but basically what's happening is your website is hosted on a server somewhere, and when somebody visits your website, a piece of code, a piece of JavaScript code, is then transferred over to your prospects or your visitor's computer in the form of a cookie, which sits in their hard drive somewhere. And this cookie is then used to identify that person. No, you can't identify them in the sense that who they are, but just we're not violating any GDPR here. Although you do want to make sure you have a privacy policy. You're not legally allowed to run Google Analytics without a privacy policy on your website. But it will be used to label that person and get non-identifiable information of that person. So, for example, once that cookie has been installed on that visitor's hard drive, this data is then sent to the Google server somewhere, where it reports to you in the Google Analytics dashboard information about your visitor. Things like what their interests are, what kind of, how old they are, what gender they are, how much money they have. All these kinds of things are available on Google Analytics. And this is a bit of a shame, really. Google Analytics hasn't done a great job about educating users in the same way that Facebook has. Now, a lot of people go to Facebook because it thinks that's where this information exists. And it's just not true. That information exists with far more granularity in Google Analytics. Indeed, I've run Facebook ad campaigns using Google Analytics data to feed back into the Facebook campaigns in a very clever way that allows me to use both platforms, both Google and Facebook together. And this kind of cross-platform advertising is really, really powerful. So how do you install it? First of all, you need a website and you need an email address. You need to prove that this website belongs to you, obviously. And the way you do this is you put down your email address and your website URL. Choose an industry and a time zone. Choose a time zone that's, you know, where most of your visitors come from. So if I was running a .com website with lots of visitors from the United States, then I'd like to have the reporting in a time zone that's relevant to most of my visitors, because that will make more sense to me. Otherwise, I'll be getting confused seeing traffic at early hours of the morning. Your account name can be anything. Now, I would call it, if you've got a bunch of websites, I'm going to go into that later. If you've got a bunch of websites, do not go out there and create a different Google Analytics account for each website. You don't want to do that. Just choose, if you're in that, if that sounds like you, then just create something like Jack's Businesses or something like that, okay, as your account name. And that will become clear why later. Probably a bit of history for you. Universal Analytics Tracking Code, as you can see there. A lot of tracking codes start with UA. The reason for this is back in 2004, there was a company called Urchin Analytics. It's got nothing to do with Universal Analytics. It was a company that Google bought for, I think, 1.2 billion back in 2004, like 15 years ago, which was a lot, a lot of money back then. It's still a lot of money now. It was even more money back then. And the reason it did that is because at the time, Urchin Analytics was charging £100,000 to their clients for providing all the data that Google Analytics provides today. In fact, less data. And it was doing that, and Google bought Urchin Analytics to give this data to advertisers for free. So all the data that you see in Google Analytics today, just because it's free, shouldn't let you think it's not valuable. It used to be bought for £100,000 only 15 years ago. So definitely use that data. And Google, the whole point of buying that data for Google was to try and offer more value to the advertiser so they can use that data from Google Analytics in their Google Ads campaigns to improve the efficiency of their campaigns so that people spend more money on Google Ads. And it's a crying shame when I see businesses, therefore, who are running Google Ads accounts without Google Analytics, because they're missing a trick there. The first thing you want to do with that in mind is link your Google Analytics and Google Ads account. I won't run through here how to do it, but it literally takes 30 seconds. There's loads of YouTube videos online showing you how to do that. But it's the first thing that you want to do when you set up a Google Ads account and a Google Analytics account. And the goal for this is going to be to import the conversion goals that you set up from Google Analytics into Google Ads. So Google Ads knows what a conversion is. This is really, really important now. Because of privacy, you have to enable demographics and interest reports. Things like people's age and gender of your website visitors isn't accessible to you until you go into demographics overview and enable the reporting. By default, this will not be done for you. And it's a crying shame, because I've seen advertisers before. Well, I've seen clients of mine who've come to me with businesses, online businesses, exclusively online businesses, about 10 years old, and they're getting 100,000 visitors a month. So really high traffic websites, and they didn't enable their interest reports. So you've got no data in Google Analytics with all those millions of visitors telling you how old they are, where they're from, the geography, etc., gender, and how much money they're earning. Now imagine if you had all that data, you could jump into Facebook ads and hit the ground running, because you know which ages, which genders are converting the best. But sadly, they didn't have that enabled. So big lesson to be learned there. Always innate. It's the second people think installing Google Analytics is easy. It is, but you still have to configure it. And this is part of your configuration. Enable your reports. Next, conversion tracking. Now, obviously, I mentioned to you how important this is, but let me explain to you where the value lies. So really, if you've got a sales funnel, and today you can't really exist online without one, you need to track. It'll be useful to know where people are dropping off in your sales funnel. Now, if you go, well, let's work from the bottom up. You've got 770 at the bottom, sales confirmations, but 848 people reviewed the order page. So, but there was still a 78 drop off, right? 10% of people dropped off at the last stage. I'm looking at the bottom of the screen there. And then the payment page. So again, I'd say about 10% fell off because there's a 90.12% throughput there. But if you go right to the top, you can see that actually right at the add to cart stage, 2,416 people have fallen off the add to cart page. That's telling me that the leak in this funnel is right at the top at the add to cart. Now, if I didn't know that, I could just be plodding along and assuming that my 770 sales over this period is what I can, what I can achieve. But then I wouldn't have that data to let me know that I can go to the add to cart page and maybe fix something that's causing this drop off. So just by, improving that 30, just by doubling or reducing that drop off by a half, I would have 100% more sales. And I wouldn't have any access to any of this information were it not for Google Analytics. So I want to talk through a couple of stumbling points. So if you've got multiple businesses, you don't need multiple accounts. Each account can hold 50 different websites. And websites in Google Analytics land are called properties. So a single property is a website. And you can have different views, analytics views per website. So you can have 50 different websites in your Google Analytics account, which is the reason why if you've got lots of businesses with different websites, just have one single account. It'll make things miles simpler for you. And call it something like, I don't know, Victoria's Businesses or something. And then what you've got is your views. So first of all, as you can see in the second column, properties, each property has got a unique number. Okay, so each property has a unique number that's assigned to a website. So the UA tracking ID that begins with the UA 288882/-29, that is a unique number assigned to website 1, for example. And then you can have 20 different views per website. Now, what you can do is you can have filtered views and unfiltered views. You can have views of data, where you're focusing only on the US visitors. You can have views focusing only on European visitors if you've got a really big website. The reason why you might want to do filtering is you might want to filter out bot traffic. You might want to filter out also your own IP address. If you've got a low traffic website, but you haven't filtered out your IP address, your developer's IP address, your husband's IP address, etc., then you're going to be getting data that's not very representative of the truth, of ground truth data, right? One more thing, you also, in Google land, in Google Analytics at least, a unique visitor is known as a user. Okay, it will never say unique visitors on there. It will say users. So for us who are running Google Ads, what's really important is that we set up conversion goals. So you set up a conversion goal in, say, in Google Analytics, and we do this by, say, someone who submitted a lead form. And then once they've submitted a lead form, how do you identify that goal as a successful action? What you want to do is make sure you're telling Google what page view, which page view someone has to land on. So which page, which destination someone has to land on in order for Google to register that as a conversion. So for example, somebody who submits a lead form or a contact form, if they land on a thank you page, then that's telling Google Analytics that yes, that's a conversion that's taken place. Now, I mentioned to you about email campaigns. Now, if you're sending out an email a week, then what you can do to make sure that you work out which email copy is working, to learn which email copy, what email copy is working best, is you can use a tool, there's a link there for you to go to, where you can build your own tracking links. So the way this works is wherever you're sending them in your email campaigns, let's say you're sending them to the agentsofchange.com/how to measure, as in the example there. You then put down the campaign source. So this can be this is a name. So this is going to be your newsletter 225, for example, if it's email 225. And then the campaign medium, call it whatever you want. And if we're sending an email campaign, call it email. If we're running a Facebook ad campaign, call it a Facebook ad campaign, medium. And what you'll do, and this tool in that blue hyperlink above, when you input that information, is it will spit out a tracking link that you embed in the place of what you were, where you were going to send the traffic in the first place. And this will automatically send the data to Google Analytics. And if you were running an email campaign, you might discover, for example, in this case, that newsletter 225 had a 3 times higher performance than, say, newsletter 221. But you wouldn't know that otherwise, right? You wouldn't know that if you weren't looking at Google Analytics, if that data wasn't reported to Google Analytics. And armed with that data, you can then go back and craft all your future emails accordingly to make sure that they all are performing as best as they can be. So really, the big cost of not using Google Analytics is the opportunity cost of not optimizing your marketing efforts. That's the real big cost. There's no immediate cost that's going to harm, it's going to hurt you. But down the line, you're going to see that you've wasted an awful lot of money in terms of your opportunity cost by not leveraging this data that you've got. And going back to email campaigns, if you've got a large email list, you can work out using the demographic data that Google Analytics reports to you, which kind of demographic is responding to which kind of email. And then you can use that afterwards to maybe tailor your list and segment your list accordingly. So audiences. Now, this is within the context of remarketing audiences. So what I can do is I can create a couple of conversion goals and tell Google to create an audience, for me such that I'm including people who have, say, visited less than 7 days ago and spent maybe more than £15, or spent less than £15, because I want to retarget those people. Maybe I want to target people who added a specific product to basket. Maybe what I want to do is to instead target people who have spent 2 minutes on a specific page on my blog, have watched over 2 minutes of my video, and scrolled down the page beyond 75%, say, but didn't buy anything. That is a wonderful remarketing audience, because they've already digested some content and they haven't taken action. My conversion rate to hit these people is going to be much, much better. So just know that you can apply all these different conditions within your Google Analytics account to label specific remarketing audiences. So let's run through a couple of examples. Oh, and one more thing. Once you've enabled the demographics and interest reports for all of your campaigns going forwards, you're going to be given access to all this wonderful information, things like the kinds of stuff I showed you in the Google Ads section, in addition to other stuff as well. So, do they like music? Are they TV lovers? The kind of stuff that Facebook gives you.